Striking Fury is brought to you by National Core, one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers and a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives, just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. To learn more about National Core and their mission, go to nationalcore.org.
And now that the bills are paid, Happy New Year to everyone out there tuning in. This is the first episode of 2025 for Striking Fury, the official podcast of the Major Arena Soccer League's Empire Strykers. Yes, it is us again. Yes, we know we've been inconsistent. Yes, we apologize. Yes, we will be better. And yes, we are serious this time. But before we get into that, in case the holidays swept away your brain cells, because they certainly did mine, we need to reintroduce ourselves. My name is Christian Filliman, better known as Philly, and joining me, my indoor soccer homies, Amanda the Panda Filliman and the Doctor, Jonathan Reimer.
What's going on, everybody? Certainly good to be back for this second episode of this season. And again, apologies for not being here sooner. A lot of life has happened over the last couple weeks, and we'll get into that, of course. But yes, good to be back. Doctor, how's it going for you over there?
Buenos tardes, amigos. Buenos tardes, familia. It has been a crazy past couple weeks. We really tried to get a podcast out last week, but I think we have a good excuse, teacher, as to why we didn't turn in our homework last week. My apologies, but the fires ate my homework. It's been a little wild, but in the meantime, viva Los Angeles, viva los bomboneros, to all the first responders, to all the firefighters. Nothing but love.
Absolutely. Now, yeah, this is an Empire Strykers podcast, and well, you might be noticing that each of us are wearing the colors and the logos of a team not named Strykers. I'm wearing an LAFC hat. The Doctor is wearing a Dodgers hat. Amanda's rocking an LA Rams shirt. And the reason for that is because the three of us live in Los Angeles. LA is hurting these days, and we wanted to shout out LA strong because despite the tragedy, LA is strong, resilient, the city of dreamers and the city of angels. And to be honest with y'all, our hearts are broken witnessing what we did this past week and what we continue to witness as these fires have ravaged our beloved city.
To interject here, Philly, Panda have lived in California for 9-10 years now. I've lived in California my whole life, over 4 decades here. I remember when my family was on the verge of evacuation in the Great Laguna Fire back in the mid-90s when 700 homes burned, and we just thought, how is it possible? 700, what a catastrophic number. I think we're at a little over 11,000 homes that have burned this past week in LA. I mean, it is just unfathomable, the level of destruction and just insanity that has come with it from every possible angle in every corner of the globe. There's been help, there's been hate. It's been a series of emotions, and we've been riding through it, fam.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I made a post today, just kind of wanted to I had like a feeling dumping happening. Like I just kind of need to get it off my chest, because I don't know about you, but I have been doing a lot of emotional oscillating. I go from happy to sad to mad to scared. I've done all the different feelings. Like you open up social media and you see, the destruction and the chaos, but then you also see the heroism and bravery of the firefighters. You see homes that are destroyed, but then you see, people finding things, their pets and stuff. So I've been going through this like crazy emotional roller coaster that has seemingly exhausted me to no end. It's the constant checking of the apps, where are the fires, what's going on. It's the having the news on when you're home 24/7 just to find out what's happening, because if you know what we know, it can happen in an instant. Something can flare up, and before you know it, it's in your backyard. So I think we've all been a little bit on edge. I think our stress levels have been at a level 10. And, this is, for us, this is actually maybe a good thing for all of us to kind of come together and one, talk about it, and also talk about something else. Talk about something else that is actually good. We'll get into that, of course. But either way, it's so nice to just be here with you guys. I mean, last week, our power all went out. We had no way of even doing it. We thought about it, and, that's okay. we're here now. We're here. We're ready to go, and I cannot wait to get into this. We have a lot to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, we have an awful lot to talk about. I just want to last couple 2 cents I have here. Amanda and I moved to California from New York City back in 2016. We bought our home in Burbank June of 2017, and I remember going through the Latuna Canyon fire and the Brace Canyon fire. That's the closest we came to a lot of fire. And having grown up in New York City the vast majority of my life, never dealt with stuff like Mother Nature. Mother Nature is the biggest gangster I've ever come across in my life. Forget about the gangs and the other hoodlums out there and the mob and whatnot. Mother Nature is the one that's the most hardcore. But I will say this, having gone through another tragedy, being in New York City during 9/11, what I witnessed back then was New York City being resilient, sticking together. And, well, there was a unity that I had not seen my entire life growing up in the Big Apple. And that's, I don't want to say, it was one of the positive things that you can pull out of such a tragic thing that happened in New York City. And the closest thing I've seen to that is what we've bared witness to here this last week in Los Angeles, with the city under siege by fire, however it may have started. I mean, we've seen a lot of people come together, a lot of communities get together, firefighters doing their thing. You have firefighters globally coming in around the world, from Canada, from Mexico, from South Africa, plenty of other places. So what we've seen out of LA is it really is a big community. And while you always hear the negative, you rarely hear about the positive because, well, bad news is always what sells. Unfortunately, that's how the news rocks. But it's nice to see communities put together and doing things. And look, we love LA. We've been here almost 10 years now, and there's no other city that I would rather be in, no other city that I'd be happy to represent. I love LA, and shout out to the first responders and everybody who volunteered during these crazy times.
Yeah,
just to remind real quick, I'm so sorry, folks.
That's okay.
www.redcross.org is the perfect place to go, or you can text 90999 if you want to contribute to the fires here in Los Angeles. Contribute to the aid.
Absolutely. Yes. I know a lot of people have been doing that, and it's very inspiring to see. So if you feel like you want to help, then donate to the Red Cross. It's a reputable organization. Too many scammers out there. You want your money going to where it needs to go. All right.
Amen.
So I'm going to go ahead and get into it, let you know what we're going to cover. We're going to go over some little Jets action, just to kind of let you know what our M2 team is up to. We're going to talk about what's happened since our last pod as far as games we've played, the results that are happening. We're going to talk about standings and stats. What does our team look like right now? What about the players on the team? How are they looking in all this? What's coming up? What do you have to look forward to game-wise? And then, if we have any MASL news that you guys want to bring up, that's great. We can do that there. And then, of course, if there's any little mulligans that you think of as this pod goes on and you want to insert them there, you may do so then. So any questions before we get started?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. All right. So like I said, we're going to get into this. We're going to start off with just covering a couple minutes of the M2, let you know what the Empire Jets are up to, what they've been doing, and what you can expect. Philly, do you want to go ahead and just talk about what games we have missed since our last pod on December 23rd?
Oh, geez. We'll be here for a while, but if we're talking M2, let me just make sure that's what
I'm talking
all
M2.
All right.
I think
Since
I
December when? I just want to make sure I start correctly.
Oh my gosh, the notes are right there. Just read it.
All right.
You know how to read a teleprompter, Ron Burgundy. Let's go.
I'm Ron Burgundy. My name's Philly. Yeah, thanks a lot. Look, a lot has transpired since the last time we podcasted. The Empire Jets, when we had last discussed things with you, lost to the Chihuahua Savage 2 in overtime at Toyota Arena by a score of 6-5. And since then, it's been a very interesting but very competitive season, if I must say so. The Empire Jets on December the 19th hosted the team currently in first place in our division of M2 and that of the Wichita Wings. It was a great game. The Jets came out with the dub, winning 8-6. But since then, they've had a three-game streak from there in which they won. Sorry, I'm trying to read these notes here. Beating the Wichita Wings, first and foremost, very, very impressive considering how good this team is. The amount of goals that the Wichita Wings score, unbelievable. They're a team that's undefeated at home, but 1-1-1 on the road. The fact that the Jets beat them, big time. December 28th, heading down to Front Wave Arena to take on San Diego Strykers 2. It was a game that, well, it was a little more lopsided than the scoreline indicates. 7-4, the Strykers 2 won that game, but it was a domineering performance by the boys from Oceanside beating the Jets. They then went up north to a former familiar foe in that of MASL, in that of the Turlock Cal Express. On January the 10th, the Jets unfortunately fell by a score of 9-7, but the day after, in overtime, they were able to enact their revenge as they beat the Turlock Cal Express 9-8 in overtime. So as it stands thus far, the Jets are in the middle of the pack with some very impressive performances this season.
Yeah,
I do have a little bit of a news drop on the Empire Jets. For those of you interested in tuning into their next match, which will take place at Toyota Arena prior to the game of M1 Empire versus San Diego. It will be Empire Jets versus Strykers 2. That broadcast will begin 2:30 Central Time with none other than yours truly on the mic doing play-by-play for the M2 game. We had a member of our crew who is unable to make it to the game. So Emery, who normally does your M2 broadcast, is not going to be available on Monday. So Doc got the call. Doc's going to be in on the call. So it's going to be a fun one. So if you get a chance to tune in, I'll be doing double duty that day, calling 2 games. So I get to do play-by-play for that first game, rocking at Vin Scully style solo booth. And then joining, of course, my illustrious partner, the voice of Empire himself, Mr. Christian Philly Philemon, on the call on CBS Sports Golasso Network. But more on M1 in a moment.
Yeah, no doubt. Exciting. We always like to keep up with our M2 guys. You never know when we're going to see any of them on the M1 side. So that's kind of our little flyover with the Jets, as we like to call it. Nothing too in depth. We're not going to give you everything, but I just want to keep you guys abreast of the situation. So
speaking of flyovers, for those of you unable to fly and might be more interested in a bus drive over, we would like to remind you to experience the thrill of game day with Omnitrans in partnership with the Strykers. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let us take care of the ride. Thank you, Omnitrans.
I love public transportation. I hate driving. It's the one thing that I despise living in this part of the world. I grew up on trains. Having a static cost of a Metro card, which I remember going back to like $50-something. I think it's over a C note at this point. I don't remember, but public transportation is the way to go. You want to kick it at the game, you knock back a couple of beers, not have to worry about those treacherous 3 letters, D, U, and I. Do your thing, Omnitrans. Public transportation, got to make that sucker grow. LA had it at one point. If you watch the movie Roger Rabbit back in the day, well, sadly, Judge Doom won.
The only thing that I love just as much as public transportation is a seamless transition. Thank you for that, Doctor. I love it. It makes you feel so good. All right, so we kind of got through the Jets. We got through the M2 portion just to kind of like, it's like an amuse-bouche. It gets you all ready for things, get your palate ready for the main course, which, of course, on this podcast is our M1 team, the Empire Strykers. And since our last matchup, back before Christmas time, we have had 5 matches that have happened. We've had 2 home matches and 3 away games. Actually, 3 of those matches all happened over a course of 4 days. So, I'll tell you, if I'm exhausted, I can't imagine what those guys are feeling. So we're not going to cover each of these games individually. Absolutely not. We would never do that to you guys. But I know you guys probably have some highlights, some things that you guys might want to point out, or at least kind of go over the score lines and just talk about the matchup. We went to the game down in San Diego. We got to go to Front Wave for the first time back on Saturday, December 28th, where we saw the Strykers take on for the first time the San Diego Strykers. Doctor, you were there. You have some thoughts on this matchup?
My second trip down to Front Wave, I was there for the Combine as well, too. My first time getting to take in a proper MASL game during the Combine. We just got to watch a little bit of scrimmages happening. The day I was there, it was mostly goalkeeper training. So I didn't really get a chance to see the boards, how it played, the action, the vibe of the crowd. I love the facilities. To be inside the first indoor soccer specific facility. I mean, a facility built with indoor soccer in mind. I know it's a San Diego Sockers, but it still warms my heart just to see indoor soccer can say that we have a stadium that was built for us. And, that's not something that most of our teams have. And it's a luxury that San Diego has, the ability to build this impressive arena, excellent amenities. Everything is brand spanking new. Aside from perhaps a few misplaced or perhaps underprotected TV displays, particularly ones right behind the goals. I think the stadium was really well thought out. If you go there, you're going to have a great time. And I know the postseason is going to be taking place there. So I have a feeling that MASL fans are going to be coming in from around the nation and descending on O side. I grew up 15 miles north of O side. So it's kind of like going back home for me in a way. It's weird that the Sockers have moved so far away from San Diego. That drive from Oceanside to San Diego is a long one. It basically cut our drive time in half going down to check out Sockers games. So it's very convenient for me. My mom lives super close. So I love the whole experience. Maybe not exactly what happened in this game, but I think this game was kind of a microcosm of the entire road trips that we've had. And obviously the Strykers have performed very well at home. Philly and I have got to call back-to-back dubs. We'll get to that in a sec. But the road performance for the Strykers since our last pod has been down. And a lot of it stems from stalwart defense throughout the course of the game, but just mental errors, mental mistakes that lead to sloppy giveaway goals. And with the slow, methodical style of Obasi, those simple mistakes have unfortunately put us on the wrong side of the scoreline in this matchup. And that's going to be a trend throughout the course of some of these road games.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think as the Strikers adjust, I think to this kind of new style of play, I think we're going to see them get better, and you'll kind of see that trending as we go along. But yeah, this matchup, I mean, they started off hot in the soccer. It started out good. I think we went up, was it 2-0, and was feeling pretty good. Wouldn't you say, Philly? You were there with me. Did you have any thoughts on this game, the stadium, anything about this little trip at all?
Yeah, I mean, it was my third time. I went the one time with Doc, and then I got to be part of the MASL draft. And then this time around, yes, I echo everybody's words. Front Wave Arena is awesome. Fantastic facility, not only for indoor soccer, but I mean, if you see what the San Diego Clippers do, they sell that place out. So I just want to tip my cap off to Phil Salvaggio and the crew there. Fantastic job. As far as the game against San Diego is concerned, yeah, we made a couple of mistakes, but we have to highlight the fact that we did something really, really awesome, in my opinion. We shut out and shut down San Diego in the second half. They had no goals in the third quarter. They had no goals in the fourth. And combined in the half, they only had 5 shots. That's impressive. What beat us was the third quarter. Yes, some mental lapses here and there, but you also have to compliment the performance of Xavier Snare Williams, who subbed in for a sick Boris Pardo. Snare Williams was incredible, showing us all that he is going to be the future for San Diego if and when comes the time for Boris Pardo to run out and ride out on a surfboard into the sunset. But the fact that we were able to shut down San Diego was great. The fact that we couldn't really score against them wasn't great. We did get a goal by Marco Fabian with 18 seconds left to go, but there wasn't really anything that was going to transpire from that. But the way you're looking at a new team, learning a brand new system, trying to find that cohesion, trying to gel, is that they're learning a system. And that system has been in place all season. And you're seeing the live by the sword, die by the sword scenario. But we'll talk more about that as we get further along the games. But I think it was a pretty stellar performance against San Diego, other than the opener against Chihuahua Savage at Corner Sport Arena. I think the Strykers have been very competitive in every single game that they have played in, which is huge. This is a complete different turnaround, 180 degrees from what we saw last season. And if you look at the record, we already have more wins this season than we did all of last year. So things are already trending in a proper direction.
No, I think Philly highlighted something for me is just the defense, the defensive performance, holding any team, let alone a team that's basically an all-star team, San Diego. I mean, their talent is prolific top to bottom. You can hold that team scoreless for an entire second half of a game. And I think, going into that Tacoma game, the next game, Empire had only given up like 2 goals combined in the second half of games going into that game. The defense has been amazing. It's been led by Berto, but, the list of people that have performed stellar on defense, from, Perez and Martinez and Fabian and so many other people who've been back there doing the defensive work, to me has really been a bright spot for this team. And if they can button up a couple of those issues, obviously we're leaving ourselves a little bit extra exposed with having the keeper out. And that's going to take a little bit of time for us to get to know. What's up, Laugh Track? Chris Lafferty in the house. We call him Laugh Track because he likes to run when he's not being chased in circles around a track, which to me is some kind of hamstery thing that I don't really understand. But
Panda might be able to shed more light on that.
Love you, Laugh Track. I don't get it. I
shaking that Laffy Taffy. But anyway, this isn't the Chris Lafferty pod. But we might see him on here. You never know.
You never know. You never know. Laugh Track gets around. But look, let's go ahead and bring it forward to the Tacoma game. This game, I think a lot of us, were really feeling that we were on the precipice of that W. And, up until this game, Philly, it had been a long time, my friend, since you and I got to have a celebratory moment after a game that wasn't just for what we thought was a good call, but a game that slipped between our fingers. We had a few of those versus Tacoma last year. There were a couple games that, I feel we really should have won, but we gave it away late in the game last year. So, this was a great game. We got to see Chris Toth become the new all-time pass master in the history of the MASL.
Pass master?
He became the all-time assist leader, the pass master.
Pereira?
Chris Toth?
I denied. Sorry, Toth. Good Lord.
Nick,
folks, it's been a long week. Doc ain't been sleeping really well. Nick Pereira, I'm so sorry. The Iberian Brick House. I love you, brother. I swear if I get more sleep, I'll get your name right.
Oh my
Nick
God!
Pereira.
You've had a thing about not getting Nick Pereira's name right. You remember a broadcast last season?
What was it? What did I call him? Matt Brame? Nick Pereira? Well, who was
I don't remember, but it was like a couple of occasions, and we went back to listen to it because somebody in the YouTube or the Twitch was like, "This guy doesn't even know who Nick Pereira is." So I'm scratching my head, going, "What the hell are they talking about?" Of course we know Nick. We've hung out with Nick. And then going back to the broadcast, I was like, "Oh, he didn't only do it once; he did it twice." But hey, it's all good. It's fun and games.
Look, talking's hard sometimes, I'm just going to say, especially talking for hours on end and making zero mistakes. That's, look, even the greatest have their moments.
I'll tell you who should have been excited about talking. It would have had to have been Panda. You talk about the number of times that we've called losses at Toyota Arena. We started calling a couple W's, but you and I just get to call what we see on the screen. I think the toughest job out of all three of us is the one Panda has, and that's having to interview a player or the coach at the conclusion of a loss. But you've had the opportunity, Panda, to have conversations with Noah Bossi and some of the players in a positive result. So talk to us about how that feels.
Well, yeah. So, the game that we're highlighting right now, that was actually the second win that we've had. The first one was back on December 19th against Tacoma. This was the matchup against Tacoma. This was they're coming back, and we're pretty sure that they're going to come back with a vengeance because, they were that was the first time that we had actually beaten them in a while. It was our first win prior to that back on December 19th. And what was it? 300 and how many days again? 20?
Like 20 something. I forget.
Yeah. So, this game was one of those where we kind of went into it and we're thinking, okay, they're going to come out. They're going to be ready to go. They're going to think that first game was a fluke and they're going to think that they can beat us. We're coming off that San Diego loss, which I know those guys knew that they could have won that game. So you never know if it could come out hot or not. And thankfully for us, they did. And like you said, it's such a joy to be able to do post-game interviews when there's a smile on their face. I don't feel near as bad about going to the center of the turf after a win and going, hey, let's go and talk about this because they're ready to. And the boss even said that to me after the last game. He said, it just feels so good to actually talk and have a smile on your face because I usually get him at the half. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I usually get him at the half. And so he's still in his coach mode. He's not really happy, sad, mad. He's like, okay, he's all tactics all the time. Then I get him at the end of the game, and it's so nice to be able to chat with them. And it's so nice to be able to, get a positive interview. Like they want to talk so much more after a win. And I forget, who was it? Was it Stinson that I interviewed after the Tacoma game? I think it was. I think after this win, I was able to interview Stinson. And again, they're just so much more talkative when we do pull out a win. And we're so happy that we did. And that was another 3-4 matchup, the same one with the Strykers, but we were in the win column on that one. And yeah, for you guys, I know, you're going through it, you're calling what you see, but yeah, I get the raw emotion. I get the reactions. I get, to feel what they're actually like kind of feeling. And I'll tell you, when it's a tough loss, it's kind of a hard thing to do because I don't want to talk whenever I've, just done something that, like I'm not happy about or don't want to like talk about. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting perspective from me, but let's move on because we got a lot to cover. So I want to go on to the next matchup that has happened since this. And this is our first road game that we had into the new year. And this was going to be against the KC Comets, a team that we don't get to face that often. And I don't know, going into this game, I mean, KC is always a tough team. They were the runners-up last year in the Ron Newman Cup final. So no doubt going to be a tough egg to crack. Who wants to go ahead? Let's see. You guys are both doing a lot of talking. So I'm going to go ahead and Philly, go ahead and tell us your thoughts on maybe what you thought going into this match first. Like, what were your thoughts, expectations, and how do you think this game went, in your opinion?
I have to say, every game that we go into this season, other than the first one at Corner Sport Arena, I think this is a team that's going to be competitive in every single game that they play. They've shown that they can do that for the entirety of the season. Granted, we're barely a third of the way into it. And going on the road in hostile territory, look, Cable Dahmer Arena is one of the most exciting places to catch an indoor soccer game. No question about that. Some of the best fans in this league. And there's something about Smurf Turf, whether it's there or whether it's in Utica City. People love the Smurf Turf. Those buildings are always packed. And Cable Dahmer Arena, no doubt, was packed. You had a cool storyline there. The return of Robert Palmer. You had Tony Della Torre, who made his MASL rookie debut last season playing for the Comets, only competing in 6 games. The Eastern Conference champions, the Ron Newman Cup finalists. And to start the game, the Strykers were good. Marco Fabian opened up the scoring early on. He would end up with 2 goals and an assist. But like the San Diego game, the second quarter is where the Strykers really lost it. They allowed 4 unanswered goals in that second quarter. Nacho Flores had himself a brace. Lucas Souza taking care of business. And one of the best target forwards in the game right now, Rian Marquez, also doing some major damage. So 4 goals within the second quarter, another 2 in the third, and that's really all she wrote. While the scoring line might have been 7-5, the game was a lot more distant than it seemed. You had a late run by the Strykers. Stinson had himself a goal. Munir Alami would end up coming out and doing his thing. That kid's having a fabulous rookie season, by the way. I must say, Munir Alami is the real deal. Moroccan international, scored the first goal of the season for the Empire Strikers off of a beautiful header pass from Quentin Swift. But second and third quarters where they lost the game, and they just really couldn't find the turnaround there, which was very similar to the game against the Sockers. You got to play 4 complete quarters to win in this league, and just losing 1 is tough, but losing 2 quarters is really what drove the stake in the hearts.
Yeah, look, one thing that we need to also point out is, this was the start of some load management for the team. This was the start of them knowing that they were going to play 3 games in 4 days. So we were missing some players, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to happen to every team. Empire's, got a few injuries to start the season as well, too. So, look, your former goalkeeper of the year is on the shelf at the moment. Alex Bradley, who's one of the elder statesmen, it's such a great communicator, such a great facilitator out there. He's been banged up. So, look, the rotation is one thing, but you can only rotate from your available players. So, you're starting to get a third of the way into the season. You're starting to see some players pick up a few knocks. Right. And so now you got a little bit of a shorter bench and you've got a 3-game week. Those are difficult times. Right. And, the Strikers came back in this game and at least made the scoreline respectable. But if you give up 6 unanswered goals in a row, you're probably going to lose a lot of games.
Yeah, no, that's a hard thing to come back from. And, and also 2 blue cards in that matchup, giving them, 2 really good opportunities, which they did convert on 1 power play. So yeah, I mean, there were definitely some areas of improvement. I don't think that Kansas City beat us so much as we definitely kind of beat ourselves in a few of those moments. But overall, not upset with the way that they played. I thought it was a respectable performance. I think you said that collapse in the second quarter. I think this team last year easily could have folded, and this outcome would have not even been close. And I think they would have just kind of walked away from it. But, they fought back. They they gave it a moment of, oh, we better not take our foot off the gas because they're coming for us. So and also real quick shout out to our body doubles over there, Eric Bergerd, Nick Bastos,
whose bodies doubles?
Lux St. Lou. The ones doing what we do over in the Midwest and do a great job. Love their broadcasts. They are class all the way. So good job. Just want to tell those out there that. So, all right.
Can I piggyback on that by saying across the MASL, the only broadcast people to have reached out to me this week and ask about what was going on in the fires was Nick Vassos and Eric Bergrid. Both of them reached out at different times. So nothing but love for those two wonderful gentlemen. And thank you for that. But, it was, it's always great to watch a game when they're on the call. I love just the way they paint the game. They have such a great dynamic together. It's such a great call. So it's fun to watch Strykers games. I wish this game was, obviously a little bit more competitive. I think Kansas City really had the opportunity to take their foot off the gas. And there's not so much about those late goals that I think has a whole lot to do with us going forward. But again, the key in this game was mental mistakes. You make mistakes with an empty net behind you, you're going to pay for those mistakes. And a reigning Ron Newman Cup finalist is certainly a team that's equipped to take advantage of those mistakes, which they did. The road trip would move on, if I may. And we were to head down to Dallas. And speaking of fun games, I mean, from a fan standpoint, if you were a neutral watching this game, I mean, it was everything you could ask for. Score gets tied at 1, score gets tied at 3, score gets tied at 5, score gets tied at 6, right? Late game heroics, late game drama. The home team ended up going away with it. And again, I think it was a tale of mistakes for Empire. But if you're a Dallas fan and if you were just a neutral tuning in for a good game, you got a heck of a game. 1-goal score line, last goal decides the game. I mean, those are kind of the things you ask for when you buy a ticket or you turn on a broadcast. I think people were entertained by what happened. Obviously, from a striker standpoint, it's frustrating because you'd like to start seeing some of these issues get buttoned up. And I think this road trip exposed some of those issues, especially when we have to play on a different field than we're used to. And one thing about putting together a new system is it's easy to train on your field and know how to do it in your house. But when you have to go to someone else's field and the turf's not the same and the ball plays a little bit different and you have to adapt and respond, that's a lot harder to do when you're in a new system. And I think the Strykers on the road are showing some more weaknesses in the system that we're not seeing in their home form at the moment.
Yeah, an entertaining game, no doubt. There were 6 blue cards in this matchup, so that's always a fun time. But one thing that is impressive, I mean, Empire did kill any of their power play opportunities, and we were able to convert on one. And we'll get into the power play stats at the end.
That was our first of the season, our first power play goal.
I was gonna say, we'll get into that. Our power play ability to score a goal hasn't been great. Our ability to kill the power play has been far better than the ability to score on one. So we'll circle back to that in just a moment. Let's move on to something. We're going to end our game recaps on a fun note. Let's just start off. Philly, why don't you tell everybody your joke?
What's the deadliest kind of a plant out there? Chris Lafferty, if you're in the chat, you would appreciate this one. Yes, what's the deadliest plant out there?
What is it?
An ambush. And certainly the Ambush are a different team this year. They bring in Frank Tayu. They bring in Mo Ndiaye, bring back, I should say. They have Dylan Hundell. I mean, there's talent on the St. Louis Ambush team. Very competitive. The Ambush came off of a very respectable performance against the Chihuahua Savage down at Corner Sport Arena. The first game was 9-3, but 3 quarters and change into it, St. Louis very much was involved in it. And then the second game, 11-9 in Corner Sport Arena. Not many teams are competitive in that building. And so that's an eye-opener. The St. Louis Ambush nearly beat the defending champions, the back-to-back defending champions. So between all the players they have, and of course, you have players like William Eske. They bring in Axel Chikunte, who signed as a free agent from the Texas Outlaws, a team that would give us a bit of stress. But historically, not a team that has The St. Louis Ambush have never beaten this franchise. They didn't start playing one another until 2021. But up until this point, no wins by the Ambush against the Strykers. Going back to last season, Strykers only won 3 games. One of them was on the road against the Dallas Sidekicks. Another one was on the road against the St. Louis Ambush. The only win at home was in January against the St. Louis Ambush. That's it. That was all the Strykers wins in their entirety. And it was a very entertaining game, a game in which, well, Empire won 8-6, but a game that was won without having to completely rely on Marco Fabian. Justin Stinson had himself a game. You had some great goalkeeping tandems between Brian Orozco and Brandon Gomez. This was a total team performance. So while St. Louis made it very competitive towards the end, this is a big win for the Empire Strikers, in particular after having come back of a tough road trip. You don't want to lose to Dallas. You don't want to lose to Kansas City. In fact, this is a team that knows that they can win. So the fact that they were down about this weekend, to me, was a positive. Because last season, I can't say that that was the case. I think the team got so used to losing that, and I don't want to disrespect the team because there were 9 games last season that were within 2 goals. But last season was a completely different set of players. This season, a completely different set of players. The fact that they had a chip on their shoulder and they came out and won, amazing. It's not how you it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. And I think the Strykers really showed how they can handle adversity. Great win at home. Another win that we get to call under the bright lights at Toyota Arena.
There were a couple things I loved about this game. First and foremost, just getting to say hi to the Tayu brothers before the game. Big old bear hug from Frank and Uzi. Those guys always been super supportive of us, super kind to us. I do some work with Frank during the off season on the Kings Cup, and such a philanthropic, such a kind soul. So it was great to catch up with the Tayu brothers. I just wanted to give them a shout out. The return of King Frank back to Toyota Arena, where he scored more goals than I care to remember. I mean, he was such a prolific talent, such an icon. Holds so many of the Strikers / Furies all-time records. It was just great to have the King back in the game. Took him a little while, but we finally got to hear Philly say that he wielded his mighty scepter. But the man who was wielding it in this game was wielding the stinger. And that was none other than Justin Stinson, who came out with the Hattie. In honor of him, I have my throw your sombrero to the sky rally towel in homage to my hat trick goal call for Stinson in this game. And, it was just one of those moments where, I mean, every time the ball was at Justin's feet, you could just see magic brewing, whether he was dancing around people and feeding the ball. I mean, he was just on one in this game. He was cooking from minute 1. And there was never a time he was on the field in which he didn't look like he was about to do something. And 3 times he rang the bell, and that really called it, and in a game where, I know Frank and Uzi came in wanting to show their old team a little something. And, this Ambush team, despite being without a few big stars, Skylar Funk, Rich Merman, a couple others that escape me at the moment, but they've been playing extremely well despite missing some of that veteran talent that's on the shelf for them. And they gave us a good run. It was a fun game. It was a great call. It was obviously a somber call for us. It was our first time getting on cameras and mics since the what have you here. And I appreciate the league and our SCCS TV crew for allowing us to do as many Red Cross shout outs as we did throughout the course of the broadcast. I think that really helped to tie it back into everything that's been going on in our lives personally. Me living just, 3 miles from the fire lines here in Los Angeles, it really was a great game. And I think the city of Los Angeles, there were so many vibes around the players, around the staff, around the fans, that to be able to bring home a dub for the community with all that's going on just had that extra little something behind it.
Yeah, no, it was a great game. It's one of those games where anytime the Tayus are coming into Toyota Arena, it's not going to be an easy game. And the fact that Justin Stinson is so locked in this year, I would love to know, what's the motivation here? I need to know. There's something there that's just really propelling him. And I love to see it because, again, he is just lights out. And, another big shout out, huge stop from Brandon Gomez on that shootout against Frank Tayu. I mean, Could you imagine being him in goal, seeing that coming right at you?
It's a freight train, a Cameroonian freight train, the most successful scorer in the history of the major arena soccer league. And these are the stats that we're keeping. I know there's PASL and other stats in there, but it is Frank. Gomez got to, he came in because Orozco was hit with a penalty, and Gomez had a solid effort. He made 7 saves. Stopping Frank was huge because that was a momentum changer in the game. Had Frank scored, who knows what the outcome could have been. Frank eventually would score. And I think I used a Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn comment as part of my goal call, which I don't know how or why I said that. I did tell Frank prior that I would say wielding his mighty scepter just once, only once.
Thankfully, now is not the winter of our discontent. So, we've done.
I got something in common with Henry VIII. You know what that is?
Gout.
It sucks. Cheers to culture scene. But I also want to recognize a couple of other individual efforts that have to go noted. Yes, Stinson had 3 goals and 2 assists. Abdul Mansour had himself a brace, and one of the only self-Wallace scorers that I think I've seen in this league. He had 2 goals and 1 assist. To me, George De Leon played himself a good game. Berto with a Berto bomb, a 6th attacker dagger. That was great. And congratulations to Ciro Oliveira. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. He's shown us some real awesome footwork, some razzle dazzle on his feet. Kid can play, man, and I love to see him get that goal. It's always an honor to call some of these players' first goal. You talked about Skylar Funk, Doctor. We got to call his first goal in this league. We got to call Ciro Oliveira's first goal in the MASL. And
do you remember my little quib that I threw out there for Skylar Funk's first goal ever?
Bro, I barely remember what I did yesterday.
It was an homage to a great Los Angeles band, that of Rage Against the Machine, when I yelled, "Get the funk out your speaker" for Skylar Funk. I remember that.
So it wasn't Revolver. or Expletive U. I won't do it, you tell me.
Yes. No, it was definitely not. It was definitely not one of those songs. It was more family friendly. Hi, Football Mania. Yeah. So to get to call Ciro's first goal, excellent. I mean, that's always such a cool moment for us, but what an amazing moment for the player. I love the full connection.
Hey, speaking of Justin Stinson, he just joined us in the chat. Stinger, congrats on the hat trick. Y'all don't see this because I'm controlling the Instagram. Always great to have a superstar in the chat.
Stinger, hats off to you for the hattie, sir. Hats
Hattie
off
boom
to
batty.
you.
Raise that natty.
I love how Ciro Oliveira scores his first ever MASL goal in a game versus Frank Tayu. And yet Ciro Oliveira was signed by the Empire Strykers based on his performance in the King's Cup hosted by Frank Tayu. Ciro shows up as a player Frank invites into the King's Cup tournament. Ciro ends up showcasing himself, gets a contract from Jimmy Nordberg, and then full circle, it's against Frank Tayu that Ciro scores his first goal. And those are the kind of beautiful, beautiful moments that the indoor game provides us. And I just thought that was super touching. Ciro has played incredibly well. I think he's been unlucky to find himself off the score sheet more. I mean, I think he does have a couple dimes going into the game, so I think he's up to 3 points on the season. It's a great start to a rookie campaign. There are all the signs that he is going to have a very promising indoor career.
No doubt. Again, great game, great win at home. Like you said, this puts us up 4 wins on the season, which is already 1 more than we had last year, if I'm correct. So starting off on a good foot. Very happy with the performance. Just got to get a road game a little tighter. Figure that out. In the 5 games that have happened since our last pod, we did win 2 and we dropped the 3 on the road. So some opportunities for improvement there. Philly, what is happening with your light?
What do you mean? I'm going back and forth between Instagram and StreamYard. That's the thing about doing it on this platform is whoever is on Twitter or within Facebook, I'll see what's going on in the chat. If somebody's on Instagram, I got to go back and forth. It goes to show you that I don't have my little traffic light on. My apologies.
You probably should.
Speaking of traffic lights and going back and forth, folks, if you're heading to the game, hop aboard OmniTrans for a seamless journey to Toyota Arena. Simply download the Transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on your Strykers.
Oh, they just warm my heart. They really do. The seamless transitions. We should just rename our pod that Seamless Transition.
Seamless Transition. That's a great name for a punk rock band, if I do say so.
I also thought Oscillating Emotions would be a good name.
That would be the name of the first album.
Exactly.
My father once had a car that shook so much. Our name for the car was oscillatory instability, which has always struck me as one of the greatest phrases out there. But I will never forget that car because it had no seatbelts and the doors would randomly open. And one time I was clinging to the door and the door randomly opened and I went out into the street and back into the car, stuck to the side of the door in the car, affectionately named Oscillatory Instability.
Good God, if we're going to quote bands, that's like iration. Your car might as well have been called Time Bomb. That sounds terrifying. Look at you drinking a Modelo. I am drinking a Topo Chico out of my Empire Strykers koozie, sponsored by San Antonio Regional Hospital. Okay. How's about that for a trend?
Philly, I've been trying so hard this whole podcast to keep the label backwards so that we don't get busted.
Get busted by who? That's free marketing. Get busted by who? Who's going to bust us?
Te amo Modelo and everyone.
Oh my God, Modelo sponsor us. Chill Products like CBD sponsor us. I don't give a hoot. I'm a capitalist. Give me the money. Give me all the money.
You know what? All right, we're going to transition away from your rave or whatever you're having over there in the room, and we're going to move on to the league standings. We're going to talk about where everybody's at on the table as of today. Oh my gosh. You know what? Mania. Yes, no one told me that this was this kind of podcast tonight. I got nothing. I have nothing to drink.
You're always fine with a glass of wine. That's your call thing, homie.
You know what? I'm just going to be over here. I'm going to fret with some pirouette.
Hey, Jerry Stinson in the chat. Much love.
All right, guys. We got to get back on track. I know we were talking about transit and everything. We gotta get this train back on the track. So we're gonna do it by way of league standings. All right. So, Doctor, you want to talk to me your thoughts on the standings? We've got, of course, Chihuahua Savage is sitting at the top of this table. It is a very familiar spot for them to be. No surprise there, is there?
No, I mean, look, the Chihuahua Savage are the back-to-back champs. No one expected them to roll over this season. The entire core group of players that make up the Chihuahua Savage had themselves a mild offseason by going as La Bombonera and winning the entire TST tournament, in addition to having a number of other cash game successes south of the border and across the United States. So the core group of players behind this team has been kicking everybody's booty all summer long. So it's no surprise that they come into the start of the season and been taking names. You know, some teams have given them a run this year. It's not as dominant a performance as we have seen from teams south of the border. But remember, at this point in time last year, we were asking what's going on with Chihuahua, and everybody was talking about how Monterey was the team to beat. Monterey goes undefeated in the season, but at the end of the year, it's still Chihuahua sitting up top. And it's no surprise to find Chihuahua back there. They got to prove that they can do it 3 times, though. They've punched their ticket to the Ron Newman Cup playoffs, but will they be hosting the Cup? That's yet to be seen.
Yes, Philly, you may go. I have a question though. Yeah, go for it.
All right, look, their penalty kill is at 100%. Nobody has scored on the Savage on the power play. In addition, they've nearly scored 50% of the time. 44% is their stat. Their goal differential, of course, it might be skewed because they did put up more than 20 against Tacoma. They're averaging just under 11 goals per game. But I think a huge difference that we didn't mention because he wasn't as much of a factor last year because he was dealing with injury. Jorge Rios, Pareja. This guy is back and he's on fire, baby. I love Jorge Rios. One of the nicest guys I've met south of the border. The kid's got 11 goals and 7 assists, 18 points, 2.3 points per game. This guy is a phenomenal scorer who is tough to shut down. He's also a very big reason why the Savage are doing their thing. We know La Roca is going to do his thing. Hugo Puentes. We know Flaquito, Brian Macias, is going to do his thing. You have Roberto Escalante, who's got a rocket of a leg. Carlos Popper Hernandez. I mean, such a talented group of players. And then you look at their goalkeepers, Diego Reynoso, Christian Hernandez, who we remember his rookie season. I mean, yes, this is the team to beat till proven otherwise. I don't know if anybody can dethrone this team. I know our buddy Phil Ivanko said San Diego Strykers were the team to beat. Maybe. Not going to completely disagree with you, but it's really tough to compete against the Chihuahua Savage, period.
Philly, I think what you're trying to say is that we need to send some of these firefighters from Mexico back to Chihuahua to put out what's going on in Corner Sports Arena, because this whole team's on fire.
So you bring that up. You bring up Corner Sports Arena. We know that they are undefeated in their house. It's almost impossible to beat them there. Do you think, by any chance, having the playoffs at Front Wave is going to play a little bit of a factor into what could have been a more dominant performance otherwise?
100%. 100%. I do think it's advantage Sockers, but it's also a much more level playing field for everyone else. It's a traditionally sized turf. The boards play fairly even. They're brand new. The turf's brand new. I really think it was a smart decision by the MASL to bring everybody together for the finals. I know that's an unpopular opinion with so many of the fans. I get your frustration of not being able to have a home game. If the stadium wasn't a couple hours away from us, we might have a different opinion about it as well too. But having had a chance to go down to Corner Sports and see the product, knowing that the entire postseason, all those games are going to be on CBS, and that some of the facilities across the MASL do not have the technological capabilities to host a CBS broadcast right now, nor is there the funding to do the upgrades right now. This guarantees that no matter what teams make it, we will have the capabilities to do these broadcasts on the biggest platform for the league, which is exactly what this league needs, is that big platform. So it was right for a number of decisions. I do think we're going to get an honest champion this year. Not that Chihuahua's championships were dishonest in any way, but they certainly have a home field advantage. That is unquestionable. And that home field advantage is out the window this postseason for everyone but San Diego. And let's be honest, San Diego's only going to have played, a half a dozen plus games in that turf, to a dozen games by the time these playoffs kick around. So that home field advantage is somewhat minimal at best.
All right, so let's just move through these standings real quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, just to kind of let everybody know where they're at. Like we said, Chihuahua Savage at the top, followed by the Wave, the Blast, the Comets, and the Sockers, top 5. And then we've got the Strykers, Utica City, Sidekicks, Ambush, Heat, Stars, and then the Outlaws rounding out the bottom in 12th place. Real quick, any surprises with anything that you see on the table right now?
No. The one, it's not a surprise. It's just unfortunate that such a good team from last season, the Texas Outlaws, had to go through what they had to go through. I'm going to be very happy for them when they get a win. It's going to be a very tough season. No surprise that they're sitting in last. I do think a surprise for me is just how much improved Dallas is this season. Jamie Lovegrove just doing Jamie Lovegrove things. We've got the Panamanian bomber Blas Perez doing things. They have Soccer Dave down there. I mean, he was, if you look at his bio, very interesting scenario. Argentinian blood, was very successful in high school in Texas, and obviously went off to play in college and has been great on the social media side. I think Dallas is somewhat of a surprise. When it comes down to it, I do believe that the final playoff spot will probably be St. Louis fighting for it, possibly the Sidekicks. I don't view us as being any lower than 6th place. Yes, and I know people in Utica might be a little unhappy about that, but I don't think they're going to finish in 7th either. I do think the Strykers, though, unless they could pull out some pretty impressive wins on the road, I think they're a shoo-in for playoffs. Thus far, no real surprises. I mean, Milwaukee looks great. Baltimore, that veteran team looks good. The Kansas City Comets, despite sitting in 4th place, I mean, they're under. They haven't technically lost a game in regulation. I mean, I think for the most part, the season's kind of panning out within your top 5-6 spots as I would have anticipated.
Big surprise for me is Tacoma being as far down as they are.
That one.
I think a lot of that might have to do with the fact that Mijatovic has been out serving, with the national team. So I think getting him back will be big for them. But, they played so well to start the season versus San Diego. It really looked like, they had put together a perfect balance of, just a couple additions to a core squad that had performed well the last few years. I'm kind of surprised the wheels have come off that a little bit. I know 6 of those points are because of us, so I'm certainly happy about it. But I do not think Tacoma is going to be where they are at the end of the season. I think they make a run and come up a few spots at least. So that to me is a little surprising. San Diego, given the additions that they got, talking about Texas, I mean, being able to pick up the M&Ms, in Morales and Mendez, I really felt like San Diego was going to be demonstratively better than last season. And right now they look like they're still trying to find their style and find their form.
They've lost one game. What are you talking about? They've only lost one.
They haven't looked like the dominant San Diego Sockers of, 2-3 seasons ago and prior, right? I would say by their standards, they expect to destroy everyone every game. And given the roster they've put together, that's a reasonable expectation. And they've been playing on a lot of close games. Yeah, they've won, but they've been winning by 1 goal, 2 goals here and there in games that, look, at the end of the day, points are points, right? You do what you have to do to win. I just expected them to be a little bit more grandstand and showboaty about their wins this season. And it's been a little bit more workman from them.
Look, Luis Morales has made himself comfortable in San Diego. He's currently leading the team in goals. He's been impressive. Haven't really seen too much, though, of the other M-boy. And I would have loved to have had him on the Empire Strykers. Sebastian Mendez has 1 goal and 2 assists in the 6 games that he's played in. But, they've got this kid Gontan who's fantastic. And, of course, your usual players are there. Tavoy Morgan's always going to do his thing. Charlie Gonzalez is going to collect his dimes. Gabriel Costa is going to do his thing. And not only do they have Boris Pardo, who's a fantastic keeper, but Xavier Snare-Williams starting to really come up in his own and had a really impressive effort against us. They're still a good team. The one loss, to me, yeah, maybe the games are tighter, but did you really expect them to beat people by 10 plus? No, I think the only team that I would have anticipated being a world beater is Chihuahua.
I would say, look, if you look at the standings and you see the Sockers in 5th, that's a rarity in the past.
Sure, they've got some games in hand too.
Sure.
Yeah. So
you're asking me my opinion on how the table looks right now and how it will change. I think San Diego's going up that table, not down.
All right. Yeah. Okay, good. I was gonna say you're smoking something if you think they're gonna finish lower than
either way.
No, I quite the opposite. I think they're underperforming where they'll be. Sorry.
All right. Well, your Empire Strikers, like we said, are currently sitting at 6th place. They've played 9 games. What?
Oh, I just said not for long. Sorry, inner monologue. Sorry.
Keep it inner. Anyways, that sounded really bad.
I didn't even think of it that way, but you did, and you know what? I am delighted.
Anyway,
you want
Strikers are sitting in 6th place. They've cut 4 wins, 5 losses, a current goal diff of just -1. So that shows you how close these games have all been. They have not, in those 5 stretch of games that we had, the 3 that were on the road, they did not lose any game by more than 2 goals. So no reason, nothing to panic here. They're finding their footing. Things are fine. We're good. Let's talk about how the team overall is performing in these team stats. We've already hit on this a little bit. They are on a 1-game win streak, which we've talked about. They are averaging 6.1 goals per game. The -1 goal diff is there. And then the thing that I want to talk about is these power play percentage, 17%. What do you think? What's going on there? Anybody have?
I've had a lot of conversation with Onu Obasi, the coaching staff, and quite a bit of the players, and I have asked all of them what is going on in the power play. We play with a 6th attacker the whole game, so how is a power play any different? And the thing that I have heard sort of from everyone is that the team is used to, outside of a power play, building very slowly and being very methodical and defensive oriented in how they move the ball forward. And that works great when you have an empty net and you're playing 6v5. But when you're playing 6v4, it's just a little bit of a different mentality. And the guys have to find a sense of urgency around what's happening on the power play. The first 30 seconds of the power play, the ball's not even across the line yet. We're still building in the backfield, and there just needs to be a little bit more get up and go on the power play. And I know the team has worked on this a lot. And I think we've seen in the last couple games, we've started to see a couple power play goals, and they're starting to figure out their stride there. But I think it was just a bit too methodical, a bit too calculated to begin the season with, trying to stick to a system that is typically operating without the 2-minute time constraint. And now that you're attempting to do all of that in a very short amount of time, that requires decision-making to happen much faster. And that requires a familiarity with the system that this team just doesn't have yet.
All right. And then, of course, our power play kill, 71%. Are we happy with that?
I mean, it's better. I mean, last season they were at 62%. So it's certainly improved there, but is there room for adjustment? I think so. I mean, these teams that go out there and really make a deep run in the postseason typically have that penalty kill above 8%. But we do know that the Strykers can play some really fantastic defense. Look, Berto Palmer, I think has had a really good year. You look at some of the games that he's played in, shutting down the likes of Nick Pereira. He was outstanding in the game against the St. Louis Ambush the other day. I mean, I think this is just a number that's going to continue to be improved upon. I do think our defense is much better this season than it was all of last season. No question about that. You had a finger in the air, Doctor.
2 of the power play goals that Empire have given up this season have been in 5v3s. You get yourself into a 5v3 by making a mental mistake in your 5v4 and committing that second blue card foul. Those cannot happen, right? So half of the power play goals Empire have given up so far this year have been in 5v3 situations. And in 5v3s, we all know this, it's very rare for a team to get out of that without giving up a goal. Right. The other thing you have to do is not get caught in the booth as you're trying to get your way out of the penalty booth there. Make sure that you can get out on time, have the right people in the penalty box so that when the penalty ends, the right person's heading out onto the field. It's just some of those mental mistakes, those execution mistakes right there. You button up those 2 little moments and all of a sudden we're talking about an 88% penalty kill. And I think that's a more accurate representation of the defensive stalwart effort this team has put together on that side of the game this year.
I agree with all of that. And to piggyback off that penalty box kind of snafu, for those that I don't know if maybe they were in the arena, didn't know what was going on, because it was a bit of a kerfluffle down there for a moment. I know this rule changed maybe like 2 seasons ago, that when the goalkeeper is given a blue card, he comes into the box, but they have to send an actual field player into the box with him. He's the one that runs out when the penalty clock is done. The goalkeeper cannot leave, I don't think, until there's a dead ball after that. So the problem with that was, which it wasn't actually a problem because St. Louis scored. So I think that kind of glossed over what really happened. But had that not been the case, I think they would have made a much bigger deal about Brian being the one leaving the box, because he was not supposed to leave the box. There should have been another field player with Brian that would have been the runner at that point. And that didn't happen. There was just, again, with rule changes all the time and just things like that not happening very often, it's so easy to forget. And that was kind of that moment right there. So either way, it did not end up being, something that really impacted us in the long run, thankfully, for that game. But again, those are the kind of things that I get to hear and listen to. So guys, ever want to come down to me in the booth and say, hey, Panda, what's all that talk about? I got you. Okay. So let's move on. Are you ready? Because we've got just a little tiny bit left. So hang in there with us, guys. I know we're just over an hour, but hey, we've crammed a lot of information into this. I just want to talk about some of the people that are really making some waves. And of course, this list would be not complete if we did not mention Marco Fabian, who is actually currently the Golden Boot leader in the league. He's got 13 goals so far in the season with 2 assists, so he's got 15 points. But if we're going to talk about points, then we have to talk about the Stinger himself, Justin Stinson. He is leading the team right now with 16 points. He's got 10 goals, 3 of them that happened just last night. And 6 assists on the season. So those two right there, when they're hot, it's really hard to stop this team. And then rounding out a third spot, hey, you said it earlier, Philly, in this. You were very impressed with Munir Alami, and he's got 13 points on the season. He's got 7 goals and 6 assists. Is there anything you want to say? Any standouts? Anybody you want to highlight on this list of stats for our Empire Strikers?
Abdul Mansouré, no question. Abdul Mansouré come on strong these past couple of games. We've seen some flashes of brilliance from him over his few seasons within the MASL. None that stands out more to me than the goal that he scored in the mini game in the final against the San Diego Strykers. We all know how that result turned out. But Abdul Mansouré has really looked solid. He's 6 goals, 2 assists. I think he's having a solid year. And I also want to recognize Andy Reyes. Andy Reyes coming back to Empire, where we started his career, spent several years here, is coming off of the heels of his greatest season in indoor soccer last year, playing for the Texas Outlaws. He is leading the Strykers also right now. He was, yes, he is. 7 assists on the season. I mean, he's having a phenomenal contribution. I mean, he's back in California where his family is. He's from San Diego, played his college ball here as well. I think Andy Reyes is really coming along. And as a veteran who's been in this league for a significant period of time, he has been outstanding. And I got to recognize the keepers. I mean, people probably question the fact that, well, why do we switch between so many of the keepers? Well, utilizing them as a 6th attacker is going to cause a certain amount of fatigue to each of them. So I do want to say Brandon Gomez had, I would say, his best game of the season in the last game, not just because he stopped Frank Tayu, but just because of all the other saves that he made. And Brian Orozco really coming into his own, and Clayson DeLima. We still have really yet to see Clayson DeLima emerge this season, but we know he is one of the best shot stoppers in this league. So I'm very happy about this team. I'm very optimistic about our chances. To me, if we don't make the playoffs, was that the Gremlins doing gremlin-y things? Harry, Huff, and Hagrid, shout out to those boys.
They've been gremlining for a while.
To me, like it should be the expectation that they make the playoffs. Anything less than that would be an abject failure. The highest goal shouldn't be to just make the playoffs. I think this team is talented enough to make a run and make some damage in the playoffs. I'm very inspired by this team, and it's been a joy following them thus far. In particular, it's been fun calling some dubs.
Yeah, it's been great to see Munir Moroccan out, banging those goals in left and right. Love that. 2 guys that have been standouts for me, Emmanuel Aguirre, Randy Martinez, 2 kind of unsung heroes on this team so far, have not had, the flashiest of score lines, but putting in the kind of work that has led to defensive efforts. I really loved what I've seen from the 2 of them on the defensive side of the ball, particularly. Not enough credit goes to people who, do some of that small work on the back. Obviously, look, the defense is led by Berto. I mean, he's one of the greatest to have ever played the defensive side of the game, but the impact that Berto is having on some of these young defenders, some of these guys in their 3rd, 4th season in the league, to be able to have the greatest, in my opinion, defender, in the history of the league, just his intelligence, him as a sounding board, to be able to play off of. I think that's just been such a huge addition, and the impact that Berto is having on the rest of this defense, cannot be understated.
Yep, I agree. I mean, everybody on this team has really stepped up in a lot of different ways. And I think you said it best at San Diego is like, there's so many guys doing those little things that don't make their way to stat sheets, but they're so important and to the game and everything. And I mean, I think I'm so impressed by so many of these players, and I can't wait to see how the season plays out, and we can see how it's going to play out in our next matchup. That's going to be on Saturday. Oh, is that right? Oh, yeah, we played the ambush again, don't we?
Yep.
I honestly,
we're running it back.
At first, I looked at that and I was like, "Oh gosh, did I accidentally copy last night's game?" No, we get to do it again. We do that a lot during this season where we play the same team back to back, but we are going to be taking on the ambush. So a little bit of, they're going to be looking for some redemption, no doubt, in their home turf in St. Louis. That's going to be on Saturday, January 18th at 6:05 Eastern time. And then San Diego Strykers are going to make their way up to our Toyota Arena on Monday, January 20th, where we will get the call on that. That's going to be at 9:35 Eastern, and then they're going to go up to Tacoma, and then Tacoma's going to come to us. But we will pod before that happens, so I'm not even going to get into it because that's just going to force us to have to come back and do this again, don't you think?
Amen. Yeah. And just a reminder, it's going to be a doubleheader versus San Diego, M2 Jets versus Sockers 2 in the afternoon. And then in the evening, it will be Strykers versus Sockers. So be sure to check that out. It's going to be a fun one.
Absolutely. All right. Do you guys have anything within the MASL that you want to highlight now? Philly, your hand is raised.
Just want to give a shout out to Gordy Gerson and Joey Tavernisi for being selected to the All-Star game. They were the commissioner's pick.
Excuse me. The Capelli commissioner's pick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They bought the sponsorship, right? Shout out to Keith Tozer for that. They were all at the coaches convention in Chicago. It's crazy that it's already here. It seems like just yesterday we were at it in Anaheim. Chicago in the winter. I've spent many a time in that part of the world. Chicago in the winter for me, just not a very appealing place to be. If it was Vegas, no question. If it was Miami, no question. Chicago in the winter, nah. So we'll see where it is next year.
Curl up in a deep dish. You'll be fine.
That's fair. But yes, congratulations to Gerson and Tavernisi, both with ties to Utica. So that they should get a ruckus applause at the Adirondack Bank Center. So good for them. The Empire Strikers
got robbed.
The Strykers will be sending Stinson and Marco Fabian, deservedly so. So we'll keep an eye out on our boys and looking forward to another All-Star game. I'm so freaking thrilled that it's back. I remember watching it in 2020 at Cable Dom Arena, not there on TV, of course. That's back when you had to, you remember you had to pay for the subscription on Facebook. That seems like it was forever and a day ago. But the fact that we're back to an All-Star game, freaking awesome, baby. So I am super pumped about that. And I'm super pumped to introduce you both to the newest member of the Striking Fury podcast. He's made a couple of appearances. His name, Fred. No, Hello Kitty, that's something else. She's wearing an LAFC jersey. This is Fred. Fred is what's called a fuggler. He's a funny, ugly monster. Look at how happy he is. He's got boxer briefs. I thought he was going to moon y'all for a second, but this is Fred. We're going to be seeing a lot of Fred this season. Say hi. Hi, Philly.
Hi, Philly.
Yeah, there you go. Fred the Fuggler. He will be on. We're going to have some moments and some segments with him. I love Fred. We might bring him to Toyota Arena. You can't just randomly bring a kangaroo onto the show. What's the kangaroo's name?
Kanga. The Roo.
All right. Well, Fred is so much cooler than Kanga. So
anyway, oh my God, corn dog.
I'm not even going to tell you what I thought you were doing for a split second.
Oh my God.
I don't know. He's been having a Modelo. What do you want me to say? But this is Fred, so you'll be seeing a lot of Fred. Look at how happy he is. He's happy to be on Striking Fury. Yeah.
Hey, look, while we are talking about MASL news, we have a champion returning to the league and a player who has been so hot, he can only be measured in Kelvin. And that is, of course, Oliveira coming back.
God.
After his championship run.
Stop it.
Look, I'm excited to watch the guy play again. I know everybody up north is excited as well, too.
I mean, that was good. I don't want to say corny because it wasn't corny. It was actually quite creative.
It was brilliant. I love.
Speaking of corny, shout out Corn Dog. Shout out to the boys that in the box, by the way.
Love smart humor. It's my favorite. Thank you.
Yeah, that was that
was good. That was good. So, all right. Do you have any
mulligans? I do know the difference between Nick Pereira and Chris Toth. I swear I do. I'm so sorry.
I'm flawless. I don't need mulligans. Fred, I got Fred.
Okay.
My best
I
friend.
think we talked long enough. I can't believe there's people still hanging out with us. God bless you. We appreciate you. Like we said at the beginning of this, if you guys feel the urge and the need to donate for, yes, Reimer, your hand was raised.
No. I was just gonna say what you were already saying. So sorry.
What I was gonna say is if anybody is compelled to donate to any of the fire victims out here in Los Angeles, of course, go to theredcross.org. You can also text it to, I think, 90999 as well and make a $10 donation. I know anything and everything is so helpful right now. There's so many people that have some have lost literally everything except the clothes that are on their back that they ran out with. And I can't imagine what they're going through. So We appreciate you all being here with us and for us, and we will definitely do this again. Guys, do you have anything else to say?
Are we going to be consistent with the time? I want to know, like, should we, because if we say this right here on the air, then we have a forced obligation to be consistent.
Barring no windstorms with power outages and wildfires and maybe holidays that actually go into the nighttime, I'm sure we'll be just fine. It was just poor timing. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, but we weren't spending our New Year's Eve on a podcast. I mean, people were celebrating the new year. I don't know what to tell you. So.
Okay, so then are we coming to an agreement that we're going to be every Tuesday at what, 8:30? Are you saying yes?
Yes.
All right, so 8:30 from here on out. If it doesn't come to fruition, the doctor owes you all drinks. 8:30 every Tuesday on the Empire Strykers YouTube channel, the Empire Strykers Twitter. Got to figure out the password for the Facebook account. And while we are on Striking Fury, would like to transition to the Empire Strykers Facebook, Instagram page as well. So you heard it right here on behalf of myself, Philly, Panda and the Doctor. 8:30 from here on out on Tuesdays. And that, of course, is 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Panda, you are the hostess with the mostest. Wrap this up.
It's trying to keep this train on the tracks, right, Reimer?
Well, speaking of that, gear up for an unforgettable match day. Join Omnitrans in supporting the Strykers and make every moment count at Toyota Arena. Don't miss out on the excitement. Ride Omnitrans to the game.
Yes, nailed it. All right,
folks,
that's all I got.
Time,
huh?
Strike hard.
Rise with fury.
Oh, you keep doing it wrong. Defend the Empire. We're not the Fury anymore.
Yeah, all right, let's try it again.
Strike hard.
Defend the Empire.
No mercy.
No mercy.